Preacher Girls, welcome again to another podcast, another awesome episode of Preacher Girl TV. It's so great to be with you right here today in your headset, on your computer, on your phone, wherever you are. And you gotta excuse me because I'm recovering from an awful cold, so I might sound a little bit nasal. But if you are ready, we are back with our KYC series, Know Your Calling, and today we have my two favorites. I can't wait to tell you all about my two favorite charms, the Prayer Warrior and the Shoe Charm. So if you're ready, let's get started. Shout out to the Preacher Girl. Shout out to the Preacher Girl. So if you're a Preacher Girl and you have one of our Preacher Girl bracelets, then you would most likely have the little wing charm, and that is the Prayer Warrior charm. Now, if you don't have one, I don't mean to go out and get one because you don't need one of these to be a prayer warrior. If you have this is just so that every morning when you put this bracelet on and you look at this charm, you remember that you're not just a prayer, but you were called to prayer, that you have a gift inside of you that your Abba deposited in your belly to make sure that you remember that if God called you to prayer, that no one can uncall you. Let me tell you why this is such an important charm to me. I'll tell you a little story. This happened just a few months ago, actually. I was with my teens and my young adults at a wilderness camp. It's like a retreat where I took them away for a couple of days so we can be with the Lord and we can refresh our spirits. And so this one night, we're all sitting around the campfire singing praise and worship songs, and then all of a sudden, I'm sitting in the dirt. It's dark. All the light there is the fire, and we're singing I Want to Burn the Midnight Oil and Samuel song, and all of a sudden I feel something cold on my foot, and then when I look down, of course I can't see anything, so I start feeling around, and I realize that it could be an insect. A wet, cold little insect. And I don't know about you, I'm not scared of demons, but I'm scared of insects, well, like cockroaches, etc. So I start feeling around to see what it was that was on my foot. It was so weird because I was wearing a whole shoe with socks, but I felt something cold right there on the instep of my foot. So I did what any self-respecting preacher girl would do, and I flung my shoe off and I took my socks off to see what had crawled into my shoe and my sock, and I couldn't find anything. So I picked up the shoe and I turned it over in my hand like this, and this little wing had fallen off of my bracelet and fallen into my shoe and somehow into my sock and touched my foot. And I pulled it out and it was an angel's wing. And what happened in the next few minutes, I can only tell you kind of had to be there. Because the Spirit of the Lord was so heavy and intense and thick in that group of us. And we literally felt and saw the smoke of the presence of God. I can't describe it any other way because it was such a windy night, but the smoke went straight up and it didn't blow on anybody's faces. And there are people who actually have video recording of seeing wings as it were inside of the flame or in the smoke going up. It was just amazing. And to me, when this fell off and God got my attention, it was to remind me of His presence, to remind me that there are always angels encamped around us, but most of all, to remind me that my calling is to prayer. You know, I want to speak to the wives for a moment. For those of you who are married and complain that your husband doesn't talk to you enough or doesn't tell you, enough stuff, the Lord reminded me of something very recently. He said, all you've got to do is to ask Him, what can I pray for you for? If we're called to pray, if that's why God has called us, and you're having trouble right now communicating with your husband, communicating with your children, all you've got to do is ask them, say in the morning, say, is there anything in particular that I can pray with you about? And you'll get some information from them that they might not give to you otherwise. And that information, you as a mom, as a wife, as a sister, as a daughter, you can take this to the throne of God. It is amazing what God will do when a mom prays for her child, or a wife prays for her husband, or a friend prays for a friend. And that's what a prayer warrior charm is there to remind you of, that you have the ability to hold on to the horns of the altar and to not let go till God answers your prayer. You know, in the Bible, there are so many instances and examples of people who wrestled with God, like Jacob during the night, or Daniel who fasted and prayed for 21 days until the answer came. And God said to Daniel, he said, from the time you asked, I had already answered you. It just took a while for the angel to get here with your answer. And daughters of God, I've got to remind you that prayer is not just talking to a being in the sky. Prayer is getting in touch, dialing your phone, is face-to-face conversation with your Abba, the one who loves you, who called you, who knows you. And you cannot grow in your relationship with God and as a preacher if you don't pray. And you know, for some of us, prayer is waking up in the morning and saying, good morning, Lord. You know, keep me safe throughout the day, watch over my kids. And we think that's enough. But that's not what prayer really is like. We are all as Christians called to pray, but the women who carry this charm, they know that they can do something different. They know that there is a passion and a gift and a surrender that comes when their knees hit the ground. They know that they're strongest when they're on their knees. They know that there's somebody on the other end of this conversation who is able. You know, you can call a friend and gripe, or you can write in your journal, or you can tell people what you're going through and speak to a psychologist and a psychiatrist, and you can do whatever you want on this planet for days and for months. That 5 minutes of prayer, talking to the one who is actually able to do exceedingly and abundantly above anything you can ask or think, is the smarter way to go. Don't make God and prayer your last resort. A prayer warrior makes him your first resort. He is always your number one, your plan A, your only plan when there is no other plan. There is always a choice, and a prayer warrior's choice is always to fight with their knees on the ground. And that's what this is for. The second charm we're going to talk about today is this one. Well, you know your girl's a shoe girl, right? You already know that. And for those of you who think that is such a vain thing for me to say, that's because you're not fully aware of why I'm a shoe girl, or why I call myself a shoe girl. It has nothing to do with red bottoms. It has nothing to do with Louis Vuittons. It has nothing to do with all the things you think it has to do. By the way, let me just show it to you. Look at these babies up. What? Those are cute, right? Okay, yeah, those are some of my favorite ones. Also some of my oldest ones. I've had those for like about a decade. But let me tell you what this represents. A long time ago, one of my best friends on earth said something to me. She said, if you don't fill your shoes, somebody else will. Let it sink in for a minute. God gave you shoes to fill. Whatever your role is on the earth, in the kingdom, wherever you were meant to fit, if you don't put your foot in it, wear the shoes that God meant for you to wear and fill it, somebody else will come slip their foot in. You know, like the whole Cinderella story. Your shoe fits you, but you gotta wear it. Now let me tell you why this is such an important charm to me and why I wear it. Because the Bible says, how beautiful on the mountain are the feet of them who bring good news. You know what literally that translates as from the PG Bible? How beautiful are preacher girls' feet. That's what it says, because we are called to bring good news. That's what the feet represent to me. That's what the shoes represent to me. Also, it represents my witness. As a preacher girl, I'm called to stand there and testify. That's what witnesses do. We testify that we've seen Jesus, that God is real, that Christ is risen. We've got a testimony, and that's why it says to put on the shoes of your testimony. Your feet should be shod with the preparation of the gospel. So every time you look at this shoe, every time I look at it, you know what I remember? Above all the things I'm called to be, I'm called to represent Jesus. I'm called to be a witness to the truth of the testimony of Jesus Christ. The shoes that I wear might be various. Some people wear many hats. I wear many shoes. So you can wear the pastor shoe and the wife shoe and the mom shoe and the entrepreneur shoe and the teacher shoe and the cook shoe. I don't know what it is you're wearing, but I will wear these well. If I'm a preacher girl, I'm gonna be the bomb preacher girl. I'm going to be the one that God says, yes, that's how I meant for it to look. If I'm a mom, I'm going to be the mom. Doesn't mean I'm always going to do everything perfectly right by everybody's standards. But if God puts something in my belly that needs to be birthed in the earth, it's going to happen. And that's what these shoes mean. Every step I take is done in Christ. Every time I hit the ground, oh gosh, I gotta tell you about this story. I might have said it once before, but a few months ago, I think it was last year, Fanny and I went to Washington. Was it Washington? Yes. Okay, we were in Washington, and I'm walking down the gangway in the airport, and all of a sudden I turn around and I'm like, Fanny, do you hear that? And she's like, hear what? I was like, never mind. And we're walking down the gangway to the airplane, and all I hear is crash, 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 boom, boom, like this. So I keep looking around to see if there's somebody big coming up behind us, or if they're moving some. And there's nobody, just she and I keep, but every time I start walking, I hear it again. And I said, Fanny, you can't hear that? It's so loud. And she couldn't hear it. And then all of a sudden, the Holy Spirit dropped in my spirit. He says, that's what your feet sound like in hell. I was like, whoa. And that's what the Lord was trying to tell me. So even as you go right now to preach, just know that the enemy knows you're coming, that he hears the sound of your footsteps like the sound of a giant. And preacher girl, that's what I'm here to tell you. Those are the shoes that you were meant to wear. Wherever your capacity of service is, where you're called to serve, those shoes are your shoes. Nobody fits them like you do, so wear them well. So there you go, 2 more PG charms. The shoe and the wing, the angel wing, which is the prayer warrior, and your ministry or preacher girl charm. Those 2 charms are dear to my heart, and I know that so many of you love those as well, and that's what they represent. Will you do me a favor, especially all those of you who have that prayer warrior charm? Will you write down there in the comment section what questions you have concerning prayer? Maybe what's the best time of day, or what to do when you don't know how to pray, or what do you exactly say, or you're having a hard time in your prayer life. Whatever it is your questions are as it concerns prayer, will you just put them down in the comment section? Because in a few weeks we're going to have a question and answer Q&A session made just for answering your questions concerning prayer. So go ahead and write it down, and we're going to pick one of you that wrote a question so that we can give you a nice prize. And let me show you what the prize is. This is brand new. In fact, I was just handed it by Pastor Jody, by the way, who is the one that makes these bracelets, the leather ones that you guys have. And this is her infinity bracelet. I don't know if you can see it very well, but it has an infinity knot right here, and it's in the preacher girl color. So it's so beautiful, and it's the only one like it so far. She makes something, she shows it to me, and if I love it, I offer it in the PG store, and I want to give it away for free to one of you lucky preacher girls. It looks so cute. This one's little because it's made for my wrist, but whoever wins it will make sure to make it just especially for you. So for whoever writes down below in the comment section a question as it pertains to prayer, we're gonna have a Q&A coming up just on that for you. Don't forget, if you haven't done so already, subscribe right down here, and make sure you like the video. YouTube loves those thumbs up. Make sure you give it one. If you're not a part of the PG community, hop on over on Facebook for the Preacher Girl community. That's right there. And on Instagram, we're Preacher Girl TV. I'd love to see you there. That's where we put most of our content all day long. They shoot stuff up on there. So thank you so much for being a part of this podcast. And remember that if God calls you, then no one can uncall you.